Hello everyone and welcome to Bookmas episode 2. We are here coming at you with our October and November wrap up. I have never done one of these, so bear with me. We're doing October and November together because I read 2 books in October but 5 books in November, and I want to talk about them and I want to review them, and I figured it'd be a good, video and introduction to me for doing these Bookmas videos. We are filming for the first time in front of our new bookcases. If you watched my moving vlog part 2, we built my little dream home kind of corner library here, and it is so beautiful to look at. That is probably such a weird thing. Well, I don't know, I guess if we're all book readers, we love looking at bookshelves and seeing everything. It's not 100% where I want it, but I have everything categorized the way I like it, and I think that's a good start. I said in my last video we have some more exciting things coming up towards the end of the month that will take us into the new year, and I think some of this will take into play on on what I mean by that. But we're going to talk about the books that we read in October and November. There wasn't much, as during that time I was going through a move and I was not really focusing on reading. I was kind of too stressed to even fathom picking up a book, and I didn't pick up a book for probably 6 or 7 weeks. But in the midst, the limbo right before you move where you can't pack yet but you're excited to pack, I did read 2 books, and they were probably my favorite reads of the year, which I think is an incredible feat for a very stressful time in my life. I have found 2 really good reads. So the first one is The Gingerbread Bakery by Lori Gilmore. This book I have been waiting for ever since I read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, and the fact that it was book 5 in this series is insane. The banter that you see between these 2 main characters throughout the whole the whole Dream Harbor series is it built up to this, and you just you craved to know what exactly happened, and you got it in this one. Now it is a dual timeline, which not really my favorite. I did have to deal with that, but it was still such a good book. If this were to have closed out the series, I would have been 100% fine with that, but the fact that we have at least one more book, and there might be another book, I can't quite remember. I think the Daisy Chain Flower Shop or something like that is set to come out next year. But this one, this was just top of the top. I gave it 5 stars. There's a little bit of spice in it, and it just literally one of my top reads. I had been anticipating this book ever since I read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe in January or February, and so to have to wait for this thing to come out and finally read it was such a good thing. So much so that I read it in 5 hours, I think, and I started it at 8 p.m. I remember starting it super late, and I stayed up until 2 in the morning when I shouldn't have, because I had to work the next day, and I was just I don't care, I'm finishing this book. I could not finish this book, so finish this one. 5 stars. The second book I read in October was also one of my top reads this year, and that is The Compound by Aisling Rowell. This one, I had no idea what to expect going in. People had said it's like Love Island meets Lord of the Flies. I've never watched any of those, so I walked in not knowing exactly what this is about, and wow, this was quite a read. And as somebody who has literally only ever read romance and was trying to try new genres, this fully opened my eyes, and I couldn't I couldn't put it down. It was so good. I wanted to read it during work, that it was the second my lunch break hit, I was I literally pulled it off the desk into the page that I was on, and it was so good. So my favorite part of this book, with it being called The Compound, is you start and you end with the main character Lily in the compound. We don't know what happens after she leaves this place, so it's kind of it kind of messes with your mind a little, because you what happens, where does she go, is there going to be another book that's going to continue this, that's kind of a second standalone, or is it just going to be by itself and you're left wondering? I don't know. It's just, my mind was blown when I read this. And again, it's probably because I've really only ever read romances, so to read something completely different was just so eye-opening and just a really good time. So much so that I might read this again, just because I really liked it. The fact that this is a debut novel for her is just insane. This one I would definitely give a 5 stars to as well. Now to go into November, we had a pretty good read. We had 5 books for November, so that is really good for me. In November too, I also announced my 10 before the end, and so I kind of wanted to mix those. So I'm not really somebody who has like a TBR setup. I kind of just grab whatever I want. Not sure if that's considered a mood reader. I've never done the like TBR jar videos or anything yet. I can't wink, sorry. Since I had the 10 before the end, I did want to go a little bit off that one. When I had filmed that, I had already read Bride. This was my first time reading Bride by Ali Hazelwood, and I know it probably seems like I waited a long time to read this, and when I tell you, I almost picked this up last year, but then Mate was announced and I said I'm gonna read these tandem. I'm gonna wait until Mate comes out to read Bride. So that's what I did. I should probably do it this way. I did Bride first, and then in the 10 before the end, I had already started reading this one and knew I was going to finish it because I literally finished it the next day. Wow, 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 wow. These books, so good. Ali Hazelwood does not disappoint me. She's an auto buy for me. I have my own shelf dedicated to her and all her books right there. We knew we weren't going to be disappointed, and just how everyone was talking about these, we knew it was going to be good. I do think that Mate is my favorite of the two, personally. This book, so closely though, almost didn't get a high rating because in the prologue of this book, you learn a little bit something. Obviously it's a prologue, it's before everything that happens in this book, and I was like, no one has discussed this. Why hasn't this thing been brought up? Why hasn't nobody made the connection to this? And literally the next chapter they talked about it, and I was like, okay, there we go. But Mate was definitely my favorite of the two. Bride is still a really good book. You know, it's the concept of the whole werewolves, vampires, humans, but kind of in today's world. But Mate was definitely more my draw. I would say 4.5 and 5 stars is what these are rated. I haven't fully updated my Fable with everything. I think I've like put up stars, but I've never put descriptions just because I always forget to update it. And I think this one I have to update up to 5 now that I've like thought about the two. I think I gave them both 4.5s. But this one is a 5 for me. To continue my 10 before the end, I read 3 more books off of it. And I had said that 5 of the 10 I wanted to read before the end of the year. The other 5 were maybes. So the first one that I read after Mate was a fall book, and it was a maybe because it was still fall here in Colorado. It was still 60 degrees. So I read Falling Like Leaves by Misty Wilson. This one was such a cute little fun read. It's definitely, I don't know if it's considered YA. I don't know the borders of what's YA and what's adult. I gave this one a 3.5. This was a good read, and it's definitely a good YA. That's why I'm thinking it's more YA, especially since they're high schoolers. However, I did think it's almost that thing where they sounded too mature. I'm not around 17-year-olds. I think I have one niece who's a senior in high school, but otherwise, I don't really know the attitudes, the mindsets of teenagers these days. I try to compare it to how I was when I was 17 years old, and I don't think I was this mature. But also, part of this is the fact that her parents are kind of going through a separation, and she goes from living in New York City to living in a small town. And so it's kind of like, I obviously didn't have that experience. I grew up in a small town and then lived in big cities. So I can't compare myself to this, but I thought the reasoning for, quick little trope spoiler, there is a bit of a breakup and then a discovery that happens and then the go back. I just felt like she sounded extremely mature for like a 17, 18-year-old to explain herself. And again, I haven't really dived into the YA romances, so maybe they're all like that and I just don't know, but this is my first one to go off of. But still, a 3.5 I think is a good rating. Like, it's not a 3.5 isn't a fail, so it's still a good book and I still like it and I still recommend it. I just have nothing to compare it to, so a 3.5 I think is a very good rating for this. Up next we have Not Safe for Work by Nisha J. Tooley. This one is what I mean by I kind of just pick up and read whatever. I feel like a lot of people would maybe read this during the summer or spring because it does take place in Hawaii and a little bit in Chicago. This one, I don't know if it's slow burn or like longing, but like the tension that these two have in this book from start to finish, so good. I read this book in a day. I literally had woken up early on accident and was like, what am I gonna do? I've got like 2 hours before I have to log into work. Why don't I start reading this? Read it on my lunch break, completely finished it after work, and was like sad when it was over because I liked it, because the ending of this book and what she does, chef's kiss, mama. Like, girl power, girl boss, let's do it. And I just loved the entire thing, and these two together, so good. And the whole concept of the whole thing, I was there 100%. I was like fighting, like being like, come on, like why is that a thing? And if you read it, I make sense, but if you haven't read it, I probably make no sense at all. So I definitely recommend that you read this and figure out what I'm talking about, because this was so good. 5 stars. 5 stars. This is what I'm talking about, my whole Goodreads update, because I was so strict. I was only giving out 5 stars if they were like perfect books, perfectly comprehensive and English things. Listen, I got a B in English. What am I doing saying that I can give out 5 stars about comprehension and what are they called? I don't even know what they're called. Punctuation. So I've kind of decided to lessen up and be like, if I absolutely loved a book, it's a 5 star for me. And I know that's all going to change when I start to get into the fantasy realm of everything. This is as far as I've made it to the fantasy world. This and The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson, like that's as far as I've made it into the fantasy realm, the other beings realm. So I just know, and like those are going to be coming next year for sure. I have so many books that I want to read that I need to kind of lessen what my rating scale is, and I will be reevaluating that and going through all of my Fable and reestablishing what their star ratings are. Okay, the last book I read in November was Promises and Pomegranates by Sav R. Miller. This is also on my 10 before the end, so I've officially read 4 books of my 10 before the end, and I read 3 of the 5 that I wanted to. I just started number 4 this morning, and the 5th book, Good Spirits, I am saving until I think closer to the Christmas holiday. We don't have snow on the ground yet, so it feels like I need snow on the ground to read that book. But Promises and Pomegranates is book 1 of the Monsters and Muses books, and these are very much kind of dark romance. This one is kind of mafia related. I don't think the second one is considered mafia, but there's like relation to somebody in the mafia, but it's not like 100% mafia. This book was spicy. Like when I say spicy, I mean spicy so much that I was like not expecting it. If you do get this, get the book that has the prequel in the back, which is The Sweetest Sin. Oh, also I loved this one because we have this beautiful cover art on these pages, and it was a good book. It was definitely an interesting book, and I liked the joking that happened in here, because essentially what happens is Elena is set to marry this other media corporation's son to like keep her mafia family in the hierarchy, essentially. Then what happens is she ends up having to marry the bodyguard because there's blackmailing going on. It's a whole mix kind of thing. It's mafia, and so it is a marriage of convenience, essentially. But some of the joking that goes on through this book, because she like knows, like she's not a complete ditz about it all, being like, well, yeah, okay, well, I'll just go along with it. She kind of fights back. But overall, it was a good read. Like I said, the banter between them was so much fun, but there is a lot of spice in this. There is a lot of spice in this. So if you like spice and you like mafia, you will like this. And this book is at least a 5-book series, I think. I can't remember if there's another one after this. Yeah, I think this might be the last book in this series. And then there's the second gen that is about the kids of the first series. The reason why I read this one is because I had picked up this book from Barnes & Noble's Endless Anger, and I learned that it is the second gen to this series. So I wanted to read this series first to see if it was worth reading before I hopped into the second gen. It was definitely an interesting story, so much so that I'm intrigued on how they talk about their parents in this one. I don't know, but this one is supposed to be dark academia, which is something I'm very much trying to get into. So much so that it said, like, he should know better than to darken the ivy-colored university's door, but it's practically a law of the universe. Wherever Lucy goes, Asher follows, even if it means entering a twisting labyrinth of secret societies, human sacrifices, and a very personal history soaked in his family's blood. So, like, I read that and was just, like, thrown into it. I also loved the sprayed edges on this one. And it had, in the very beginning, it had, like, the map. And I was just, like, so thrown into this. And then I realized it was book 2, or it was book 1 in a new gen of book series. And so that's why I read this one. Also, pomegranates are talked about in this book for some fun reasons. But I do think everybody should read this. It was a good book. Like I said, if you like Morpheus. The only thing I would say is some of these books, because I ordered the next books, they're sitting right there, they have like footnotes at the bottom, and it's like what the author was going through when they wrote it, or like kind of they like reread it and was like, oh wow, I forgot, like this is why I love this part. And there were a couple of them that took you out of the book, that it kind of, because like my mind is like, if I see it I have to read it, I can't skip it, unfortunately. And sometimes when I read those, it takes you out of the story and kind of ruins what you're currently reading, like the scene. That's my only if on it. I would try to avoid. I know a couple of these have the footnotes, and I'm gonna try and skip it when I continue this series. This one, I don't think I've rated it yet. I think I'd give this one, I'd probably give it a 3.75 to a 4. I definitely want to read the next book because it does kind of leave you with a bit of a cliffhanger, but I'm probably not going to get to that until next year, which is going to hurt me because I'm normally a series reader. If I have the whole series, I want to read it. This month, if you saw my last video, I have my December TBR that I want to read with all of the holiday books, and then I think in January we'll start over and fully build a TBR, physical TBR, and go from there. But this one will definitely be on it, and hopefully I can get to it in the first quarter, hopefully in the January, February, March. I think it'd be fun. If you've read any of the books that I just mentioned, please let me know your thoughts in the comments and let's discuss. If you want to discuss the end of the compound and where we think they go, please comment, because like my mind still thinks about it and I read it 6 weeks ago and I just can't get over it. And if you're still here, thank you so much for sticking around. If you want to support my channel even more, consider subscribing, liking, commenting, whatever you want to do, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye!